The giant space station floated in the dark between stars. Its metal walls stretched for miles in every direction. Inside, the most important meeting in galaxy history was about to begin. Captain Do-hyun walked through the long hallways of Concordia, Prime. His black uniform was clean and pressed. Behind him walked Admiral Soo-jin and Chief Diplomat Won-sik. All three humans moved with calm steps, but their hearts beat fast. The other species had already gathered in the great meeting hall. Do-hyun could see them through the tall windows as he approached. The Zelrani stood like living trees, their bark-like skin brown and rough. Their leader Velthar was the oldest being in the galaxy. She had lived for 3,000 years. The Korthex looked like giant ants made of metal. They moved as one mind, turning their heads at the same time when the humans entered. Their clicking sounds filled the air like rain on metal. The Lumina were the strangest of all. They had no solid bodies, just bright energy that changed colors. They floated near the ceiling, speaking in flashes of light that hurt human eyes too. Watch. Do-hyun had been to many council meetings before, but this one felt different. The air was thick with tension. Nobody smiled. Even the usual small talk had stopped. "Humans," Velthar said in her deep voice. "You are late." "We came as fast as we could," Do-hyun replied. He knew they were not really late. The council just wanted to make them feel small from the start. The three humans took their seats at the small table marked for Earth. Around them, the other species had much bigger tables with many representatives. The humans always got the smallest. Space, the fewest votes, the least respect. Velthar stood up slowly. Her ancient joints creaked like old wood. "We call this emergency meeting to address the human problem." Won-sik shifted in his seat. As chief diplomat, he had spent years trying to build good relationships with these species. But lately, every conversation had become harder. The other species seemed afraid of humanity, even though humans were the weakest military force in the council. "For 73 years, Velthar continued, humanity has been part of our council. In that time, you have caused more trouble than any species in our history." The Korthex made their clicking sounds of agreement. The Lumina flashed angry red colors. "Your species refuses to follow proper procedures," said Zaktor, the Korthex spokesman. His voice sounded like metal scraping metal. "You change plans without asking permission. You explore places we have not approved. You ask too many questions." Admiral Soo-jin clenched her fists under the table. She remembered all the times human explorers had found new worlds, only to be told they could not settle there without waiting years for council approval. She remembered human scientists making discoveries, then being forced to share all their research while other species kept their secrets. "Your military tactics are chaos," added Lumara, speaking for the Lumina in flashing words that appeared in the air. "You do not follow the ancient ways of war. You improvise. You break formation. You confuse our enemies, but you also confuse us." Do-hyun almost smiled at that. Yes, human military tactics confused everyone. That was the point. While other species had fought the same way for thousands of years, humans kept inventing new strategies. It drove the aliens crazy, but it also won battles. "Most concerning," Velthar said, "is your rapid technological progress. In 73 years, you have advanced further than most species do in 1,000. This is not natural. This is dangerous." The hall fell silent. This was the real issue, Do-hyun knew. The other species had stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped changing centuries ago. They were comfortable with their old ways. But humans never stopped improving, never stopped asking, what if we tried this instead? It scared them. Velthar pulled out a long scroll covered in official seals. "The council has made a decision. Humanity will accept these new terms, or face expulsion from all council territories." She began to read. Each new rule made the humans' situation worse. All human technology would be reviewed by council inspectors. All human settlements would have alien overseers. All human military actions would need approval from 3 different council committees. But the worst part came at the end. "Humanity will accept permanent junior species status," Velthar announced. "You will have no vote in council decisions. You will follow orders from your assigned senior species supervisor. You will not explore beyond approved territories. You will not develop new technologies without permission. The words hit like physical blows. Junior species status meant humans would become servants in their own galaxy. They would be pets, tolerated but never trusted, controlled but never free. 1-6 started to stand up, probably to begin negotiations. But Do-hyun put a hand on his arm. The diplomat sat back down, confused. Do-hyun looked around the Great Hall. Representatives from 47 different species stared at him, waiting for humanity's response. Some looked satisfied. Others seemed nervous. A few appeared almost sad. The captain stood up slowly. His movement was calm and controlled. Admiral Soo-jin and Won-sik watched him carefully. They had worked together for years, but they could not predict what Do-hyun would do next. Council Speaker Velthar, Do-hyun said in a clear, steady voice. We have heard your terms. Good, Velthar replied. You have 30 standard days to... We choose exile. The words dropped into the silence like stones into still water. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I'm sorry, Velthar said, her ancient voice cracking. Did you say exile? Yes, Do-hyun replied. We reject your terms completely. We choose to leave council space. The hall exploded into noise. The Cortex clicked frantically at each other. The lumina flashed colors so bright they hurt to look at. Smaller species began talking all at once in their different languages. But Velthar just stared at Do-hyun. Her 3,000-year-old mind tried to process what she had just heard. She had expected the humans to argue, to beg, to try to negotiate better terms. No species had ever chosen exile, not once in the history of the Council. Won-sik stood up next. As chief diplomat, his job was to keep humanity in the Council, to find compromises, to make deals. Instead, he smiled. All human colonies, research stations, and trade posts will evacuate Council space within 90 standard days, he announced. We will take our people, our technology, and our knowledge with us. Admiral Soo-jin rose last. Her voice carried the authority of someone who had fought in dozens of battles. All joint defense agreements between humanity and Council species are hereby terminated immediately. Any Council military forces in human territory have 24 hours to leave. The noise in the hall got louder. Some species were shouting now, others were demanding explanations. But the three humans remained calm. Do-hyun looked directly at Velthar. We thank the Council for 73 years of cooperation. We wish you well in your future endeavors. He turned and walked toward the exit. Soo-jin and Won-sik followed. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall as 47 different species watched them leave. At the door, Do-hyun paused and looked back one last time. You wanted us to be less unpredictable, he said. Now you will get your wish. The galaxy is about to become a much more orderly place. The doors closed behind them with a soft whisper. In the great hall, Velthar sank slowly into her chair. For the first time in 3,000 years, she had no idea what would happen next. Around her, the other council members began to realize what they had just lost. But it was too late to take back the words. Humanity was leaving, and the galaxy would never be the same. The message traveled faster than light across the galaxy. In secret codes and emergency channels, the word spread to every human settlement. Pack everything. We're going home. Dr. Ga-young stood in her laboratory on Kepler Research Station, watching her team work with calm efficiency. 20 years of breakthrough discoveries were being carefully packed into storage containers. Quantum computers that could predict weather patterns across entire star systems. Medical scanners that could cure diseases the aliens thought were impossible to treat. Energy systems that made Council technology look like stone tools. Doctor, said her assistant Minho, the Zelrani observers are asking questions. They want to know why we're packing the quantum lab. Ga-young smiled. The aliens had been so focused on controlling human weapons that they never paid attention to human science. They had no idea what Ga-young's team had really been working on. Tell them we're reorganizing, she said. They'll believe that. They think humans are always disorganized. Across the station, similar scenes played out in every department. Human engineers quietly dismantled fusion reactors that powered half the station. Human doctors packed medical equipment that had saved thousands of alien lives. Human teachers gathered educational programs that had helped young aliens learn faster than ever before. The aliens watched with growing confusion. They had expected humans to argue about the exile decision for months. Instead, humans were leaving, as if they had been planning this for years, and maybe they had been. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, engineer Tae-min supervised the biggest moving operation in galactic history. Giant cargo ships landed every few hours, loading up with machinery, raw materials, and entire industrial complexes. "Sir," called his supervisor, Bo-min, "the Cortex administrators want to inspect our cargo manifests." Tae-min looked at the Cortex delegation approaching across the landing field. Their metal bodies gleamed in the harsh sunlight of the mining world. "Show them the standard manifests," Tae-min said quietly. "The ones that list industrial equipment and personal belongings." Bo-min grinned. The standard manifests were technically true. They just didn't mention that the industrial equipment included mining robots advanced enough to strip mine an entire asteroid belt in a week, or that the personal belongings included prototype space drives that could cross the galaxy in months instead of years. The Cortex looked at the manifests with their clicking metal voices. They saw exactly what they expected to see. Humans being inefficient, taking too much time to pack simple things. They had no idea they were watching the removal of technology that kept their economy running. On Earth, President Mi-ray addressed the world from her office in Seoul. Her calm face appeared on screens across the planet and throughout human space. "My fellow humans," she began, "today we begin a new chapter in our history. For 73 years we have tried to fit into the galactic community. We have followed their rules, respected their traditions, and accepted their limitations." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "But we were never meant to be limited. We were meant to explore, to grow, to push beyond every boundary. The Council fears this about us. They call it dangerous. We call it human. Around the galaxy, humans stopped their packing to watch their president. In space stations and mining colonies, on research outposts and diplomatic missions, humans gathered around screens to hear what came next. The Council has given us a choice," Mi-ray continued. "Accept their chains or forge our own path. The choice is clear. We leave not in defeat, but in liberation. We go not to hide, but to discover what humanity can truly become." The speech was simple, direct, and completely honest. No threats, no anger, no promises of revenge, just a statement of fact. Humanity was moving on. But as Mi-ray spoke, intelligence reports flooded into Council headquarters. The reports painted a picture that terrified the alien leadership. Humans had been busier than anyone realized. Trade. Minister Bo-ram of the Traders Guild was the first to understand what was happening. She sat in her office on the commercial hub of Nexus Station, staring at shipping records that made no sense. 40% of all interstellar trade routes had human components, human translators who helped species communicate, human engineers who maintained transportation systems, human merchants who connected buyers and sellers across cultural gaps. And it wasn't just trade. Human mediators had settled border disputes between species who couldn't talk to each other directly. Human doctors had treated diseases that local medicine couldn't cure. Human teachers had helped alien children learn subjects their own species had given up on. Bo-ram called her assistant. "Get me a meeting with the Council leadership, now." "What should I tell them it's about?" Bo-ram looked at the reports again. Numbers that showed human involvement in every aspect of galactic civilization. "Tell them we have a problem. A very big problem." Meanwhile, the exodus continued with military precision. Admiral Ki-jun commanded the largest fleet movement in human history. Hundreds of ships moved through space, carrying millions of people and countless tons of equipment. But these weren't refugee ships fleeing in panic. These were organized convoys moving with purpose and pride. "Admiral," reported Captain So Young, "from the bridge of the escort carrier Brave Heart, long-range sensors are picking up Council observation fleets. They're watching us." Ki-jun nodded. He had expected this. The aliens wanted to make sure humans actually left. They were probably also trying to figure out where humanity was going. "Let them watch," Kijun said. "They'll see exactly what they're losing." The human fleets moved in perfect formation. Ships that had been scattered across the galaxy for decades now moved together like parts of a single organism. Communication flowed seamlessly between vessels. Supply lines operated with clockwork efficiency. The watching alien fleets had never seen anything like it. Their own species struggled to coordinate between different ships, different commanders, different ideas about how things should work. But humans seemed to share some invisible connection that let them work together without confusion. What the aliens didn't know was that humans had been secretly preparing for this day since joining the Council. Not planning rebellion, but always keeping ready for the possibility that they might need to stand alone. Deep in human space, explorers had been quietly mapping routes to unexplored regions of the galaxy. Scientists had been developing technologies independent of Council oversight. Military leaders had been training for operations without alien support. Humanity had never fully trusted the Council, so humanity had never become fully dependent on it. As the exodus continued, more aliens began to realize what they were watching. The humans weren't just leaving. They were taking their knowledge, their skills, their innovations, and their connections with them. On Nexus Station, a Lumina merchant named Bright Hope tried to contact her human business partner. The communication came back with an automated message: "This service has been discontinued." Bright Hope had been working with human trader Kyung-Soo for 15 years. Together, they had built trade relationships between the energy-based Lumina and 12 other species. Without Kyung-Soo's cultural knowledge, Bright Hope had no idea how to talk to most of her customers. Similar messages appeared across the galaxy. Human-run services shut down. Human-managed systems transferred to automated backup protocols. Human employees packed their belongings and reported to evacuation points. The great human exodus was more than just people leaving. It was the removal of a vital organ from the galactic body, and slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to realize it was bleeding. On the Council Station Concordia Prime, Velthar sat in her private chambers reading report after report. Each one painted the same picture. Humans were more important to galactic civilization than anyone had imagined. She had made the biggest mistake in her 3,000-year life, but it was too late to fix it. The ultimatum had been given. The choice had been made. Humanity was leaving, and the proud aliens could not bring themselves to beg them to stay. As the last human ships disappeared into hyperspace, the galaxy became a quieter place. Much quieter than anyone had wanted. 6 months had passed since the last human ship left Council space. The galaxy had never been so quiet. Hive Commander Zaktor stood in the main production facility of the Cortex homeworld. Around him, thousands of worker drones moved in perfect coordination, their metal bodies reflecting the factory lights. But something was wrong. The production lines were running at 60% efficiency. For a species that prided itself on mechanical perfection, this was a disaster. "Report," Zaktor commanded. Sub-Commander Rickon stepped forward, his metal feet clicking on the floor. "The humans called it thinking outside the box. Our collective mind cannot replicate their problem-solving methods." Zaktor remembered engineer Hyun-woo, who had worked in this very facility for 8 years. The human had been small and quiet, asking strange questions that seemed to have no purpose, but somehow his suggestions had improved production by 30%. "What did the human suggest for the crystalline matrix problem?" Zaktor asked. "He said to try installing the processors upside down," Rickon replied. When we asked why, he said, "Because nobody ever tries upside down." It had worked. The upside-down processors had eliminated a heat problem that Cortex engineers had struggled with for decades. But now, with a new manufacturing crisis, the collective mind could only think of solutions they had tried before. The Cortex had achieved perfect unity of thought. Unfortunately, that meant they all had the same limitations. Across the galaxy, on the energy world of Lumina Prime, Coordinator Eschatar faced a different kind of silence. The Lumina had not spoken to another species in 4 months. The Lumina communicated through patterns of light and energy that most solid beings found impossible to understand. For centuries, they had been isolated, unable to share their knowledge or learn from others. Then Ambassador Yu Jin had arrived. Eshtar remembered their first meeting. The human woman had stared at the flashing light speech for hours, taking notes on a small device. Most aliens gave up after a few minutes, but Yu Jin had kept trying. "I think I see the pattern," she had said after 3 days. "Your language isn't just words. It's math. Each flash is a number, and the numbers create meaning." Yu Jin had been wrong, but she had been wrong in an interesting way. Her mistake had led to a breakthrough that let Lumina and humans communicate for the first time in galactic history. Through Yu Jin, the Lumina had begun sharing their energy research with other species. Their knowledge of quantum physics had advanced galactic science by centuries, but the research required constant communication, explanation, and translation. Now Yu Jin was gone, and with her, the Lumina's connection to the rest of the galaxy had died. Eschatar tried to communicate with the Zelrani Science Council about their latest energy discoveries. The message came back garbled and meaningless. Without human translators to bridge the gap between energy beings and physical creatures, the Lumina were alone again. But the worst news came from the edge of galactic space. Fleet Admiral Sang Min of the Cortex Navy stared at the tactical display in his command center. The images showed something that should have been impossible: holes in space itself, dark tears in reality that hurt to look at. "Report on dimensional anomalies," he commanded. 17 new breaches detected in the past month, reported his sensor operator. All in sectors previously classified as stable. Sang Min's metal hands gripped the console. He knew what these breaches meant. The Void Devourers were testing the galaxy's defenses, probing for weak spots like predators circling prey. The ancient machines had been quiet for 300 years, held back by a defense grid that monitored every approach to civilized space. But that grid had been designed by human strategist Ji Huan and maintained by human engineers. Without them, response times had slowed from minutes to hours. Tactical flexibility had vanished entirely. The defense system still worked, but it worked like a machine instead of a living thing. "Admiral," called his communications officer, "incoming priority message from Council Command." The message appeared on the main screen. Speaker Velthar's ancient face looked tired and worried. "All fleet commanders are ordered to increase patrols along the galactic rim," she announced. "Intelligence reports suggest increased Void Devourer activity. Maintain standard defensive formations and await further orders." Sang Min almost laughed. Standard defensive formations had failed against the Void Devourers for thousands of years. The only tactics that worked were the chaotic, unpredictable strategies humans called thinking on your feet. But humans were gone, and the galaxy was back to fighting the old way. On the trade hub of Nexus Station, the economic crisis deepened every day. Merchant Boram watched cargo ships arrive half-empty and leave the same way. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades were falling. "Apart, status report," she requested from her assistant. 17 trade disputes this week," the assistant replied. "The Zelrani refused to accept payment in Cortex energy crystals. The Lumina won't ship to systems without proper energy form accommodation. The Visari are demanding cultural sensitivity training before any negotiations." Boram rubbed her temples. These problems had existed before humans joined the council, but human merchants had found ways around them. Human cultural specialists had helped species understand each other. Human negotiators had built trust between natural enemies. Now, ancient grudges were surfacing again. Species that had learned to work together were remembering why they had disliked each other in the first place. The communication system chimed with an incoming message. Boram's face lit up when she saw the sender. Captain Kyung Soo, the human trader who had worked with Lumina merchants for 15 years. But the message wasn't what she expected. "To all former business partners," it read, "the human Commonwealth thanks you for past cooperation. We wish you success in your future endeavors. This communication system will be discontinued in 30 days. Boram stared at the message. Even now, months after leaving, humans were still pulling away their support systems. They weren't being cruel or vengeful. They were simply moving on. But for the galactic economy, it felt like watching a life support system shut down piece by piece. On the distant world of New Terra, Captain Do-hyun stood in the observation deck of humanity's new capital. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see construction ships building the largest space station in human history. Intercepted communications from Council Space, reported his intelligence officer, Jiwan. Economic indicators down 30%. Military response times increased by factor of 4. Diplomatic relations deteriorating across all species. Du Hyun nodded but didn't seem surprised. What about the Void Devourer activity? 17 confirmed breaches in the past month. The Council fleet is responding with standard tactics. And how well are standard tactics working? Jiwan checked her reports. Council forces are taking heavy casualties. Admiral Sang-min has requested additional ships, but coordination problems are slowing reinforcement deployment. Du Hyun looked out at the ships moving around New Terra. Human vessels flowed through space like schools of fish, each captain making decisions but somehow working together toward common goals. It was the kind of coordination that had driven aliens crazy for decades. Any requests for assistance? Do Hyun asked. None, sir. Official council position is that they can handle all internal problems without outside help. Du Hyun almost smiled. The council's pride was stronger than their common sense. They would rather struggle alone than admit they needed help from the species they had expelled. But pride wouldn't stop the Void Devourers. Pride wouldn't fix their economy. Pride wouldn't restore the connections that had held their civilization together. On Earth, President Mirai read the same intelligence reports. Human observers throughout the galaxy sent back information about the growing crisis in Council space. Some humans argued for sending help. Others said the aliens deserved whatever happened to them. Mirai disagreed with both groups. They made their choice, she told her cabinet. Now they have to live with it, but so do we. She looked at the star charts showing humanity's new territories. Beyond Council space lay vast regions of unexplored galaxy. New worlds, new species, new possibilities. Our job isn't to save the Council from their mistakes, Mirai continued. Our job is to build something better. Back on Concordia Prime, Speaker Velthar sat alone in her chambers. Reports piled up on her desk, each one describing new problems, new failures, new cracks in the galactic order. Trade down. Military effectiveness down. Scientific progress stopped. Diplomatic communication breaking down. For 3,000 years, Velthar had believed that order came from control, that stability required limitation, that progress was dangerous. She had been wrong. The galaxy needed chaos. It needed unpredictability. It needed someone to ask, what if we tried something different? It needed humans, but humans were gone, and Velthar's pride wouldn't let her call them back. Outside her window, the stars looked cold and distant. The galaxy felt empty without human voices asking impossible questions and finding impossible answers. For the first time in 3,000 years, Velthar admitted she didn't know what to do next. The silence was deafening. The alarms screamed across every world in Council space. Fleet Admiral Sang-min stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing horror. What had started as small dimensional breaches had become something much worse. A massive tear in space stretched across 3 star systems, and through it poured ships that hurt to look at. The Void Devourers had returned. Their vessels were wrong in every way that mattered. They moved through space like drops of black oil, bending reality around them. They had no visible weapons, no recognizable technology, no understandable purpose except to consume everything in their path. Fleet status report, Sang-min ordered. 47. Ships ready for engagement, his tactical officer responded. Standard battle formation achieved. Sang-min wanted to laugh, but the situation was too desperate. Standard battle formation meant neat rows of ships, organized ranks moving in predictable patterns. It was exactly what the Void Devourers expected. The enemy had been fighting galactic forces for millions of years. They knew every tactic, every formation, every strategy in the Council playbook. Standard formations were just feeding them easy targets. But Sang-min had no choice. The Cortex collective mind could only process military actions they had planned for. Improvisation was impossible when thousands of minds had to agree on every decision. Engage the enemy, Sang-min commanded. The first wave of Council ships moved forward in perfect formation, Energy beams lanced out toward the Void Devourer vessels, striking shields that absorbed the attacks without visible effect. Then the enemy responded. The Void Devourers didn't fire weapons. Instead, they reached out with tendrils of dark energy that simply unmade anything they touched. Council ships didn't explode or burn. They just stopped existing. In 10 minutes, Sang-Min lost half his fleet. "Fall back to defensive position Beta," he ordered. But even as he said it, he knew it wouldn't work. The Void Devourers had encountered defensive position Beta countless times before. They knew exactly how to break it. On Lumina Prime, Coordinator. Eschatar tried desperately to organize a galactic response. The Lumina's energy-based communication could cross vast distances instantly, making them perfect coordinators for large-scale military operations. But coordination required understanding, and understanding required translation. Message from Zelrani. "Command," reported Sub-Coordinator Lindara. "They are requesting immediate reinforcement at Sector 7. "What type of reinforcement?" Eschatar asked. "The translation is unclear. The message could mean ships, or supplies, or strategic advice. Without human translators, Zelrani thought patterns are difficult to interpret." Eschatar flashed angry colors. Ambassador Yujin had spent years teaching the Lumina how to communicate with other species. But Yujin had been the only one who truly understood both sides of the conversation. "Send ships," Eschatar decided. "If they need something else, they can explain later." But later might be too late. Across the galaxy, similar communication failures were slowing the Council response. Orders were misunderstood. Resources were sent to the wrong places. Military units arrived at battle zones hours after the fighting was over. The Void Devourers pressed their advantage, striking at multiple locations simultaneously. Their coordinated assault revealed how badly the Council's own coordination had deteriorated. On the fortress world of Rampart Station, General Toran of the Zelrani Defense Corps watched his communications center fall apart. Messages poured in from across the galaxy, but half of them made no sense. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the Corthex fleet is requesting tactical adaptation protocols for Sector 12. Toran had no idea what that meant. The Corthex spoke in technical language that changed meaning depending on context. Human liaison officers had always handled the translation, explaining what the metal beings actually needed. "Tell them to use standard engagement rules," Toran replied. "Sir, they say standard engagement rules are insufficient against current enemy tactics. They need creative adaptation solutions." Creative adaptation solutions. The words felt foreign in Toran's ancient mind. The Zelrani had used the same military strategies for thousands of years because those strategies worked. Change was dangerous. Innovation led to chaos. But the Void Devourers were winning precisely because they could adapt to any strategy the Council used. "Request assistance from—" Toran paused. He had been about to ask for human tactical advisors, but humans were gone. "Sir?" the communications officer prompted. "Never mind," Toran said quietly. "Tell all units to maintain current positions." Far from the battle zones on the peaceful world of New Terra, Dr. Yunjung monitored the crisis through human deep space sensors. Her research station had detected Void Devourer activity months before the first breaches appeared in Council space. "Analysis complete," she reported to her team. "The Void Devourers are using a phased assault pattern. 3 waves designed to test defenses, identify weaknesses, and exploit gaps in coordination." Her assistant, Dr. Chan Wu, looked up from his console. "Should we transmit this information to Council forces?" Yunjung considered the question. Human science had evolved far beyond Council understanding during their time in exile. They had encountered Void Devourer technology before, in their explorations beyond galactic space. They knew how to fight these enemies, but the Council had made their position clear. They didn't want human help. "Monitor only," Yunjung decided. "Record everything for our own defense planning." She watched the tactical displays showing Council fleets being systematically destroyed. Each defeat followed predictable patterns. The aliens moved in formations the Void Devourers had seen 1,000,000 times before. They used weapons and tactics that had failed for countless generations. It was like watching someone try to fight a forest fire with buckets of water. "Dr. Yunjung," called her sensor operator, We're detecting massive Void Devourer fleet movements toward the galactic core. If they maintain current speed, they'll reach major population centers within days. Yunjong felt a chill. The Void Devourers weren't just testing Council defenses anymore. They were moving in for the kill. On Concordia Prime, Speaker Velthar received the worst news of her 3,000-year life. Complete fleet losses in sectors 7, 12, and 19, her military advisor reported. Estimated enemy forces now number in the thousands. Current rate of advance will bring them to the core worlds within 72 hours. Velthar stared at the tactical display. Red enemy markers covered nearly a third of Council space. Blue Allied markers were disappearing faster than they could be reinforced. What about the defense grid? Offline in most sectors. The automated systems are responding too slowly to enemy movements. Manual control requires coordination between multiple species, but communication delays are creating tactical problems. Velthar closed her ancient eyes. The defense grid had been humanity's greatest contribution to Council security. Human engineers had designed it to respond instantly to threats, adapting tactics faster than any enemy could counter. But adaptation required the kind of creative thinking that Council species had spent millennia suppressing. Status of evacuation procedures? She asked. Civilian populations are being moved from border worlds, but transportation networks are overwhelmed. The logistics systems were designed with human efficiency protocols that we cannot replicate. Everything came back to humans. Every system, every solution, every strength the Council had developed over the past 70 years had depended on human innovation. And now, humans were gone. Speaker. Her advisor continued quietly. Some Council members are suggesting we request assistance from the human Commonwealth. The words hung in the air like poison. Velthar had spent months telling the galaxy that humans were too dangerous to trust, too chaotic to control, too unpredictable to tolerate. Now the galaxy was dying, and the only solution was to admit she had been wrong. Prepare a message, Velthar said finally. Priority transmission to human Commonwealth leadership. What should the message say? Velthar looked at the tactical display again. More blue markers disappeared as she watched. Entire fleets, entire worlds, entire civilizations vanishing into the void. Tell them we need their help. The message was transmitted across the galaxy toward human space. It carried the weight of 3,000 years of pride being crushed under the reality of approaching extinction. But when the transmission reached the edge of Commonwealth territory, it encountered only silence. No response came back. Hours passed. The Void Devourers advanced toward the galactic core. Council worlds fell one by one, and still, no word from humanity. On New Terra, Captain Do-hyun read the Council's message in his private office. The words were formal, diplomatic, carefully. Avoiding any admission of fault, request for mutual defense assistance against external threat, he read aloud. Compensation to be negotiated. His aide, Commander Jae-won, waited for orders. The Commonwealth had ships, weapons, and tactics that could stop the Void Devourers. The question was whether they should use them. Sir? Jae-won prompted. Do-hyun looked out his window at the human fleets preparing for their own deep space missions. Exploration vessels ready to push beyond known space. Research ships carrying technology the Council couldn't imagine. Colony ships heading for worlds where humans could build something new. 3 years had passed since humanity's exodus from Council space. 3 years of silence, exile, and growth beyond anyone's imagination. Captain Dong-ha stood on the bridge of the Pioneer's Dream, watching the edge of what used to be called civilized space. His ship was sleek and advanced, built with technology that made Council vessels look like ancient relics. Sir, reported his sensor officer, we're detecting massive energy signatures ahead, Void Devourer fleet movements. How large? Thousands of ships, sir. They're systematically consuming everything in their path. Dong-ha nodded calmly. The human Commonwealth had been monitoring the Void Devourer invasion for months. They knew exactly how badly the Council was losing. Any signs of Council resistance? Minimal, sir. Most of their fleets have been destroyed. We're detecting refugee ships fleeing toward the galactic core, but even those are being hunted down. Through the view screen, Dong-Ha could see the distant glow of burning worlds. The galaxy's oldest civilizations were dying, consumed by an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. Behind him, the door opened, and Admiral Yeon-su entered the bridge. Her uniform bore the insignia of the Commonwealth Defense Force, humanity's new military organization. "Captain," she said quietly, "we've received authorization from President Mi-rae. Operation Homecoming is approved." Dong-Ha turned to face her. "All phases?" "All phases. We're going back, but we're going back as equals, not servants." The pioneer's dream changed course, heading deeper into the war zone. But this wasn't a rescue mission. It was something much more complicated. Humanity was returning to claim their place in the galaxy. On the refugee station Haven's Rest, Speaker Velthar huddled with the surviving council leadership. Once, she had commanded 47 different species from her throne on Concordia Prime. Now she was homeless, her station destroyed, her authority shattered. "Status report," she requested weakly. Sub-Speaker Koltar of the Zelrani provided the grim details. 17 more worlds lost in the past week. Total casualties now exceed 2 billion beings. Remaining fleet strength is insufficient for defensive operations. Velthar's ancient hands shook. In 3,000 years of life, she had never imagined failure on this scale. The Council had ruled the galaxy for millennia, maintaining order and stability through careful control. Now that control had become their weakness. "Any word from the human Commonwealth?" she asked. "None, Speaker. Our messages continue to go unanswered." Velthar closed her eyes. She had sent dozens of messages to human space, each one more desperate than the last. Requests for assistance became pleas for mercy. Formal diplomatic language gave way to simple begging, but the humans remained silent. "Speaker," reported her communications officer, "we have an incoming transmission. Unknown ship requesting permission to dock. Identify." "The vessel. Sir, it's human." Every being on the bridge turned to stare at the communications officer. After 3 years of silence, humans had finally responded. But they hadn't responded with words. They had come in person. The Pioneer's Dream docked with Haven's Rest using connection protocols that the station's computers barely recognized. Human technology had advanced so far that their ship was almost incompatible with Council systems. Captain Dong-Ha walked through the station's corridors, flanked by 2 Commonwealth Marines. The difference was immediately obvious. While the refugees looked tired and defeated, the humans moved with quiet confidence. They had not come as supplicants. Dong-Ha entered the main conference room where the surviving council leadership waited. Speaker Velthar looked ancient and frail, her bark-like skin cracked with stress. Around her sat representatives from species that had once commanded star systems and now commanded nothing but refugee ships. "Speaker Velthar," Dong-Ha said formally, "I am Captain Dong-Ha of the human Commonwealth vessel Pioneer's Dream." Velthar struggled to her feet, trying to maintain some dignity. "Captain, we have been trying to contact your government for months." "Yes," Dong-Ha replied simply. "We received your messages." The words hung in the air. Velthar realized that humans had been ignoring the Council's pleas deliberately, waiting for something. "We need your help," she said finally, abandoning all pretense. "The Void Devourers are destroying everything. Our fleets cannot stop them. Our worlds are dying." Dong-Ha listened without expression. Then he spoke carefully. "The human Commonwealth is willing to discuss the situation, but not with you." "I don't understand." "You are the speaker of a council that no longer exists. You represent governments that have fallen and fleets that have been destroyed. The Commonwealth only negotiates with legitimate authorities." Velthar felt the words like physical blows. "Then who?" "President Mi-rae of the Human Commonwealth will arrive within the hour. She will meet with any surviving governmental representatives who wish to discuss mutual cooperation." The message was clear. The old council was dead. If the aliens wanted human help, they would have to accept humanity as an equal partner in whatever came next. President Mi-rae's ship was unlike anything the refugees had ever seen. The new Earth was massive, beautiful, and obviously powerful. It docked with Haven's Rest, like a predator claiming territory. Mi Ray walked into the conference room with the confidence of someone who held all the advantages. She was followed by Admiral Yeon-su, General Tae-hyun, and a dozen other Commonwealth officials. The contrast was stark. On one side sat the broken remnants of galactic civilization. On the other stood humanity, stronger and more advanced than ever before. "President Mi Ray," Velthar began, "thank you for coming. We desperately need—" "You need to listen," Mi Ray interrupted gently but firmly. "The Commonwealth has been monitoring the situation. We know exactly what you're facing and what it will take to stop it." She activated a holographic display showing the current war situation. Void Devourer forces controlled nearly half the galaxy, with more ships arriving every day. "The enemy can be defeated," Mi Ray continued, "but not with Council tactics. Not with Council coordination. Not with Council leadership." "What are you proposing?" asked Subspeaker Koltar. "Complete reorganization. The old Council is dissolved. In its place, we establish the Galactic Alliance, with equal representation for all member species, no senior or junior partners, no species oversight, no technological restrictions." The alien representatives looked at each other uncertainly. They were being offered survival, but at the cost of everything they had believed in for millennia. "The alternative," Admiral Yeon-su added, "is extinction. The Void Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything, in their path until nothing remains." Through the view screen, they could see the distant glow of another world dying. "What would you need from us?" Velthar asked quietly. "Everything," Mi Ray replied. "Full military integration, shared technology, open communication, and most importantly, trust. You have to trust human tactics, even when they seem insane." General Tae-hyun stepped forward. "Our battle plans will violate every military tradition your species have followed for thousands of years. We will break formation, improvise, constantly, and change tactics mid-battle. Your commanders will think we're chaos incarnate." "Because you are," admitted Fleet Admiral Sang-min, who had arrived on a refugee ship an hour earlier. "But chaos is what defeats the Void Devourers." Mi Ray smiled slightly. "Admiral Sang-min understands. The enemy expects order. They expect predictability. We give them chaos instead." The negotiations continued for hours. The terms were simple but revolutionary. Each species would contribute their strengths while accepting human military leadership. Technology would be shared freely. Ancient grudges would be set aside in favor of survival. Most difficult of all, the proud alien civilizations would have to admit that their way of doing things had failed. One by one, they agreed. The first joint. Operation launched within days. Commander Jae-won led a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels toward the largest Void Devourer concentration. His tactical plan was madness by Council standards. Ships breaking formation randomly, attacking from impossible angles, changing objectives without warning. The alien crews panicked at first. Their training said this was suicide, but the Void Devourers panicked too. For the first time in millions of years, they faced an enemy they couldn't predict. Human ships danced through their formations like leaves in a hurricane. When the machines adapted to one tactic, humans immediately switched to something completely different. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the largest Void Devourer fleet in the galaxy had been destroyed. News of the victory spread across both human and alien territories. More species began requesting membership in the new Galactic Alliance. The Void Devourers, for the first time in recorded history, began retreating. Dr. Ga-young worked alongside Zelrani scientists, combining human innovation with alien knowledge to develop new weapons. The research proceeded faster than either species could have managed alone. Engineer Tae-min supervised reconstruction efforts on liberated worlds using human efficiency protocols to coordinate alien work crews. Infrastructure that would have taken decades to rebuild was restored in months. Slowly, systematically, the combined forces of the Galactic Alliance pushed the Void Devourers back toward the edge of known space.